Hey there YouTube, I'm Yukitsu, this is Yukitsu Times, welcome to my channel, welcome to Total War Warhammer. So we're continuing along with the tournament. We're playing as the Beastmen against Chaos, and I've shaken things up a little bit, and I think I know how to beat Chaos now, to some extent. But yeah, we're playing as Beastmen versus Chaos. We're against Beans, the tournament organizer, because there's always got to be that slight conflict of interest when people are running tournaments, that they just gotta do that. But anyway, we've got 4 units of Goreherd with shields here. I'm figuring that just economics-wise, they're a little bit of a better choice than the regular Gores, just because they're 100 points cheaper, pretty decent, pretty comparable stat array, honestly, in almost every respect. We've got 3 units of Bestigors, who I hate. I don't think they're a good unit, but they're good at mind gaming Chaos. We got 2 Chaos Giants, which is putting us into the 2% leeway sort of area. We got 4 Ungor Spearmen, Malagor the Dark Omen, and of course our Gorbel. Chaos over here has got a pretty anti-Beastman composition in some respects. He's got 4 units of Chaos Warriors who've been recently buffed. They have been hit with this patch that reduced their cost most notably. Got 3 Forsaken. He's got 2 of the Chaos Warriors with Halberds, 2 of the Chaos Warhounds with Poison, the Exalted Hero, the Chaos Giant, the Archaon, the Ever-Chosen. I think that's everything, actually. So, fairly small, fairly elite Chaos army there. Now, the reason I don't like Bestigors is that they're a very expensive unit. They're 1,000 points each, and their stats are just not really up to the level of other 1,000-point units. It's kind of not that great. Like, they'll still beat other 1,000-point units if they have an advantageous angle and their charge is better. But, like, for example, his Chaos Warriors with great weapons are pretty even fight for these guys. And the Chaos Warriors with great weapons only cost 850 points if you were to compare them to, like, great swords. Great swords actually do a pretty good number against these guys, and these guys cost a little bit more. The Black Orcs, I don't actually know how they match up, but I imagine the Black Orcs do better, because the Black Orcs are one of the better ones, and they cost more, so you would expect them to do better, so that one's kind of fair. Anyway, we're just sort of lining up and getting ready for our charges here. Our units are just getting in position for the most part, and I'm seeing which of his units are pressing forward. I wasn't entirely sure which his frontliners were going to be. But our Giants are coming into combat here, our Bestigors are coming into combat. Normally I like to do the charge orders like way early so that I know exactly where his units are going to be. But this one, his Forsaken are so much faster than the rest of his units that kind of messes with that. So you can see here the Giant just wrecking his way through 3 units basically by himself. And one of them pulls through into a unit of Gore with shields, but we're engaged pretty much all across the line. We've got a Giant hooked up over here on these Chaos Warriors, fighting away, helping out this Gore with shield. This Gore with shield is fighting Chaos Warriors, and he's doing an actually okay job. I got a good charge, I guess. We're going to just charge in with a bunch more guys here so that we can help against this Chaos Giant. But we're putting a Cygor into the back of these units right in the lead. We're not bothering with the skirmish phase with this thing. It's just going to pop up, going to stomp these Forsaken, and they're going to run away pretty quickly. Then we're going to reinforce with the Cygor. He's going to run down into this side here. Unfortunately, there's some Chaos Warriors with Halberds here to intercept him, but these Bestigors are able to get around into the back of these Chaos Warriors here. That are already engaged with that Goreherd with shields, and this is where the defensive stats in the Goreherd comes in handy, because the Goreherd actually has that higher defensive statistic array. It's able to hold out and fight for a longer time, letting these Bestigors do the job. So they break over there. We're casting Devolve here, dealing quite a bit of damage to all these different units here. Archaon's going to have to get out of there, but more importantly, we drop the morale by 8, taking this Forsaken out of the fight, causing Archaon, the Ever-Chosen, to waver, get potentially out of the fight there. These Bestigors are, like, I don't really have anything great to attack with them right now. From this angle, this Giant is going to be able to do a good enough job, I feel. This Goreherd, however, gets charged in the rear of these beast things, and I have to sort of chase them off a little bit, but at this point in time, this flank is pretty much shattered, and I can get this Giant to start heading over to help the Cygor, who's flagging a little bit, but the Bestigor herd is managing to deal a good job here. This Giant is doing a good job, but he's fighting against 3 spear units and a Gorbel, and the Gorbel actually has a big bonus versus large. So while the Giant will kill him if I let this fight continue long enough, the Gorbel plus Giant combo is gonna just kneecap this guy. You can see that happen right there. And this guy's going down pretty fast, just getting poked and prodded like that weird story about that gigantic person, Paul Bunyan or whatever, I don't know. Him and his ox, I guess. This Giant over here, getting torn down a little bit by these Chaos Warriors with Halberds, not having a fun time, but I still have a full health Giant over here. He's lost his, basically, at this point in time. He gets, like, hitting the back of the knees there. Poked, prodded a little bit more, and then one more hit to the back of the knees just takes him down. His General Archeon is coming into this fight here. He's putting down some buffs on his Chaos Warriors, but most of them are in retreat at this point in time. My Giant is just a bit too much for these Chaos Warriors, and with the Bestigor herd coming in, which really easily trounces things like Halberds, they run from terror temporarily. They are going to be back into the fight, though. Chaos Warhounds with Poison coming back in, but at this point in time, his army just sort of chain routes. Doesn't even quite kill this Giant here because they have such good morale, but yeah, the double Giant worked out really well. Just popping a Cygor right into the back of his lines to instantly break a part of it worked out really well. And the Bestigors actually did okay because my opponent didn't take the Chaos Warriors with great weapons, because you don't think you're going to need them when you're against Beastmen. And I wouldn't think I would need them. I would try to figure out some other way to deal with the 3 units of Bestigors, of course, but there's such a crappy unit compared to the Minotaurs in many respects, but I guess I can take 3 of them, and I guess they can kind of work out pretty okay. But anyway, let's head on to our next match. Alright, so this is game 2. We're playing Dwarves versus Dwarves, which is a sort of weird thing. I hate mirror matches. I told him I didn't hate mirror matches, so he played the faction I wanted to play rather than switching it for me. While I hate them, I would rather play against them than have my opponent switch just because I'm whining. But we've got ourselves a big old lineup of Dwarf Warriors with great weapons here. We've got 7 of them. We've got 4 of the Longbeards with great weapons. We've got our General, got a Runesmith, we've got ourselves a Thane, and we've got 2 units of Thunderers. This is a very up-close and aggressive dwarf list. He's got the Gyrocopter with the Brimstone Gun, he's got 2 units of Thunderers, he's got Dwarf Warrior with great weapon there, Longbeards with great weapons here, 3 of them over here. He's got the Iron Drake Trollhammer Torpedo, a very peculiar choice against dwarves. He's got the Hammers there, he's got Underground Iron Fist, he's got the Runesmith. I think, did he take 2 Runesmiths? Yes, he did take 2 Runesmiths. And there's 3 units of Thunderers and a Grudge Thrower. The Grudge Thrower with a bunch of veterancy, because that's in vogue right now for this group. I still think that's a terrible idea, but either way, we're going to go ahead and start advancing up here, because we're going to be under fire from that Grudge Thrower the entire time that we take to march towards him. He has no real impetus to move forward other than the fact that he's kind of on the low ground. Oh yeah, there's one more thing I forgot to mention. I've got 4 units of Vanguard deployed miners out in the wings here. And this is because I figured my opponent taking dwarves is very likely to be more defensive and passive than I am, and I didn't want to go into a dwarf mirror match doing artillery sniping. So I took the initiative here with the dwarf rush army, which, air quotes rush. The reason that works against other dwarves is that they don't really have anything that can properly kite backwards, and if they took any artillery at all, which they're going to probably, they can't really retreat without abandoning that artillery. So at this point in the game, we're going to have to take a long time for our miners to get into the fight, but these ones coming up around here. He's trying to take the hill position with these Thunderers. I'm coming out with these miners at this point in time to try and counteract that just a little bit. He's going to try and really just keep those free and have his Thunderers deal all the damage, as opposed to his mainline infantry, whereas I'm hoping to deal damage with my mainline infantry. Still taking some hits from these Grudge Throwers, but they've only caused like 12 kills, and they're like 7 Chevron or something like that, or 5 Chevron. I mean, it's not a good unit. It's a really bad one, just in my opinion. I've got one of my units of Thunderers just on a clicked order of go kill the stupid thing, so it's heading off in that direction. He's getting some good volleys off with these Thunderers. My unit of Thunderers is going to open up on this unit over here, so that's going to be a nice bit of retaliation, but he's having to send a lot of units to protect these 2 units of Thunderers. And since I'm coming from 2 directions, even 3 units of that is not going to really be enough. Now, we get some okay shots off against him in retaliation, but nothing really that great. And he gets a pretty good charge pull through there. But unfortunately for him, like, these Thunderers don't really have anywhere they can run to. He's trying to pick at my miners with the Brimstone Gun, which is a really terrible target. These Thunderers are coming up here to fight that Gyrocopter. Hammer is coming in, fighting my miners. It's a really big waste of hammers. He's also sending in a Runesmith. We're chasing down these guys with a couple of units over here, so that's going to put an end to a lot of that. We do manage to get into the Grudge Thrower. We get a couple of units just frontlining in against him, and then we're going to start sending in our Longbeards as well. His general comes into this unit, Ungrim Iron Fist. Unfortunately for me, my general cannot fight Ungrim Iron Fist, but I am sending him in there because I wasn't paying enough attention, and because no one takes Ungrim Iron Fist, really. Or it's not nobody takes Ungrim Iron Fist, but he's pretty rare. So, getting a lot of friendly fire as we try and shoot at these Thunderers over here. We've got like Runesmith and my Runesmith fighting it out over here along with the Dwarf Warrior and Thunderer units. So Trollhammer Torpedoes lining up. Not really 100% sure what they're going to be firing at here. Probably these Longbeards with great weapons, but don't really recall. I think they end up trying to focus down my general. Sending in this unit of Longbeards, trying to get around sort of more around the flank here. But we're going to be able to wrap up that fight pretty okay. Seeing some of these gyrocopters getting shot down by my Thunderers, who are positioned very, very nicely on this hill here. This is a very good position. He's still putting down some fire on my guys here, but this unit of Thunderers is also putting down some counterfire. And at this point in time, we're starting to break through his lines here. All he's really got is this Runesmith here, and that's not enough to stop my units from just getting past him and starting to get into melee combat with this unit of Thunderers. This other one turns to fire at these guys, but it's not really going to be as much firepower as I think he probably wanted under the circumstances. Not to mention, this unit of Thunderers is going to be reforming up along this ridge line here. It's going to be very, very well positioned to deal some damage, sending in the Thane against these Thunderers, stopping him from firing still. He's trying to chase with this Runesmith, but I'm not really having any of that. I don't really have to chase or try and kill that Runesmith. You don't block with characters, but hammers are coming in here. That's going to be pretty messy for me. And over here, just kind of like his character is kind of holding out against me. Ungrim Iron Fist is forcing my lord out of the fight here. I'm going to have to get out of the fight with him. These Dwarf Warriors with great weapons, though, will be able to sort of hold him up a little bit after that. His Iron Drakes and his Gunners are firing at my general, I believe. But in any event, yeah, it's coming down to the fight on this hill here. Now, I have got a good hill position. I think I'm firing at the hammers. I didn't have a clicked order or anything like that, and honestly, I'm probably blocked by my own units to a certain extent. But we're doing some good job killing a lot of these hammers, killing a lot of these Thunderers, and they're still not firing. These Thunderers are still not firing. They're running away from me, but that's whatever. These Thunderers pretty much out of the fight. My Runesmith is out of the fight, unfortunately, but we do get a good countercharge against these Longbeards, their own Longbeards, and with that buff there and these Dwarf Warriors coming in support, it's going to work out quite well. Ungrim's tied up by a great weapon infantry, and we're able to get into the Iron Drakes with the unit of Warriors, or Longbeards rather. We're still chasing down all these little assholes, but at this point in time, I do believe these guys are starting to fire just a little bit more. These guys do retreat, and at this point in time, like, there's not a whole lot left. We're using the Rune of Wrath and Ruin against the Hammers, because they're the biggest threat left on the table. But our Thane is doing also a pretty credible job of tanking through that. His melee defense is very high, which is what defends against a unit like Hammers, so even though he's dependent to a certain extent on armor, he's also very good at tanking through stuff just thanks to his very high melee defense, meaning he's not going to take those hits. So we take out one of the Runesmiths. Our Runesmith is on the run here as well. Ungrim is getting surrounded by Miners, Dwarf Warriors, Longbeards, so the whole mix of it. Our general has retreated to a safe distance sort of thing. But over here, just a real ball, a real mess. And at this point in time, we're pretty much close to wrapping this up here. All we have to do at this point is kill off Ungrim, and we've got plenty of Dwarf Warriors with great weapons of various different sorts to get in on this. So our Thane is going to run in there as well. He's not armor-piercing, but that doesn't really matter. You can see that all the rest of their army is shattered, just from the sheer losses from the army, and the balance of power bar swinging so dramatically in this direction. So Ungrim here, taking his big swings, and he's taking out a lot of guys. He's just fighting Miners, but even Miners, if you've got enough of them, are going to be able to take down someone like Ungrim. He's sort of, I'm not really 100% sure what he's doing here, but my Thane is after him. You can see that he's a bit bigger, bulkier than the other dwarves, which is not quite right, I don't think. The Thane is supposed to be the same size as other dwarves, but we'll start getting a good hack into this guy here. I'm not really putting in my general with much fervor, but I am actually charging him with my general for some reason as well. He's going to be joining in pretty soon. Look how much blood the Thane's covered in. And the Lord is now dead, so that is the Dwarf versus Dwarf mirror match. Bit too much invested in the Grudge Thrower, I think, and got caught a bit on surprise by the Vanguard deploying Miners. It's not something that you usually see dwarves do, but it's pretty safe to do against other dwarves, in my opinion. So that was just a little bit of something new that I don't normally do, because I don't normally have to do it. I don't play this mirror match very often. But anyway, let's get on to Game 3. Okay, so this is our third match here. We're playing as Bretonia. We're up against the the greenskins here, and yeah, this is a pretty interesting matchup in many respects because Bretonnia has good answers against most of the Orc roster, but their own roster is so limited that the Orcs are pretty guaranteed to know what you're up to one extent or another. So we got ourselves our typical front line: 6 peasants, spearmen, got 3 polearms, 4 archers. We got the damsel this time. We got our lord in the air. We got a paladin back there. We've got 2 units of Knights of the Realm, and we've got 2 of the Pegasus Knights. So it's a little bit Air Force-ish, but a little bit less so than when we got the hero in there, but maybe the second Pegasus Knight is worth more than a Paladin in the air if you got Paladin on foot. My opponent's got 2 Night Goblins. They're Vanguard deployed, but one of them got Vanguard deployed within my vision radius. I actually sort of thought there might be wolves in here because this is a very easy place to ambush from, and since I was deploying really near it, I kind of needed to know that. He's got a unit of Orc boys there, 3 more across there. I think these are Orc Biggins, 2 of them. He's got the Arachnarok Spider. He's got another Orc Biggin there. He's got 3 Orc Air Boys, 2 Orc Air Boys, 4 Orc Biggins. I don't actually know what he took in this one because all the Orc units look very similar to me. Bit racist, but you know. He's got the typical Orc War Boss there. He's got a Goblin Big Boss, and he's got a Night Goblin Shaman. Over here, we've got ourselves a Forest Goblin Spider Rider Archer. Bit of a weird choice. They're pretty pricey for a Missile Cav. He's got 2 units of Goblin Wolf Riders. So they're hanging out on this flank, which normally would sort of make me think, okay, well, he probably doesn't actually have anything Vanguard deployed. But then I'm like, oh, well, he's got a Night Goblin unit in here for some reason. I couldn't see this one, even though they're not in terrain. You can actually hide things like Night Goblins. So you get a rear charge against these guys. It's not a great one because of the terrain, but that's still more than enough for a Night Goblin unit that's away from their general. So they're going to drop down to negative morale. I'm going to pull one out of there because 1's plenty enough to chase these guys down. We're going to push forward to get into arrow range and start pelting away at these Orc boys here, and then switch fire to the Arachnarok Spider to some extent, but I'm going to some level ignore his archers because I don't really care about them that much. I can win a cavalry fight here because he didn't take any obvious Orc Boarboy Biggins, and I don't think that he could have with what I'd seen so far. Obviously, he did have a few points to spare from what I had seen because he's got this unit of Night Goblins, but that's not really that impressive there. So we're going to start putting down some fire, and our guys are, of course, braced for this fight, but even so, we're going to push our Paladin forward just a little bit, just in front of our unit so that he gets charged instead of our unit, and it's going to be pretty good. Our own general is going to be keeping above our units here just so that he can get in good rear charges. That's what he's going to be here for, as well as for the aura bonuses, of course. He's pushed his Arachnarok Spider to that one side there, so we're going to reinforce that area with the Men-at-Arms. The one thing that's actually going to be more dangerous in many respects is that Orc War Boss, but we're already starting to pour some fire into their Arachnarok Spider. It's a very good target for our bows. So yeah, we're engaged all across the line basically, except for a unit over here of Orc Boys has gotten through. We're going to charge forward with the Knights of the Realm here at these Forest Goblin Spider Rider Archers, and we're going to move forward with these Men-at-Arms Polearms. And we've still got a bit of a backline guard here. We're going to charge these guys with the Knights of the Realm here. We've still got a backline unit, though, of Men-at-Arms Polearms. It's just that they're not going to be able to really defend against this unit of Goblin Wolf Riders, who probably could have charged my Peasant Bowman at this point in time. But anyway, we're dropping Common of Cassandora on some of these units here. Our unit of Pegasus Knights here has pretty much wiped out this unit of Night Goblins, but there's still quite a few of them left there, and they're still not shattered, so... do shatter these guys, though, very, very quickly. Here comes that charge from behind there. Like I was saying, I couldn't really defend against it. But we do break through that unit of Orc Boys with our units there. We do get a rear charge in with our general. It's going to beat up this Goblin Big Boss just a little bit. These Spring on Arms, unfortunately, don't hold out very well. And they're going to start breaking pretty soon. Our Damsel's in melee combat with the general. I couldn't really get her out of that because she's a bit too slow to get away from a mounted general. But the Arachnarok Spider is just rampaging through my lines pretty badly here. Night Goblins get charged by my other unit of Pegasus Knights. This unit of Pegasus Knights needs to do something, but unfortunately this unit of Orc Air Boys is just too well protected for me to easily get at. What I should have done was just charge it into the back of these Orc Biggins while this fight's going on here, because it would have shattered this unit of Orc Boys here and probably done a lot to the morale of these Orc Biggins. Still, we're doing a pretty okay job under the circumstances. Orcs are a tricky faction to beat, one of the stronger ones. We're talking at the end whether or not we thought that Empire was stronger or Orcs were stronger. Personally, I think Orcs are stronger. Part of the reason that this is going to go the way it does, though, we'll explain that later. But yeah, we are going to push through just a little bit here. and that's going to let us reinforce our general, who's taking a bit too much of a beating here. But these mid-arms, polearms can get into the side of these orc boys. This unit of knights over here is getting ready to look for a charge. Force goblins, spider rider archers are sort of out of the fight as well, but I need to get my knights of the realm back into the fights here. Orc Biggins here retreating, orc boys retreating from terror, but it's not really that meaningful. But both of the units start retreating, and that's going to give us some free damage. These units we're going to go run after and start chasing after these orc boys here, and then potentially get into the archers. We do actually have free reign into the archers though with our Pegasus Knights, so they're going to get free charges into those guys. We're kind of just putzing around here to see what happens, but over here his army is just running rampant through mine. He's got his general over there who's still doing fine. This goblin big boss is going to be able to beat up these men-at-arms polearms pretty badly, despite what you would normally expect from a unit of men-at-arms polearms. You know, they can't even beat that. It's kind of sad and pathetic. General going to come into the back of this unit here, hope for a bit of an immediate break or something like that, but I don't think we get one. In fact, our unit is broken, so it's a little too late from our general there. Good effort though, does deal quite a bit of damage to these orc biggins, and he still hasn't used his potion yet, so still able to fight pretty effectively at this point in time. But our knights coming into the fray at this point in time, they're going to go ahead and charge this Night Goblin Big Boss. We need to deal with this Ragnarok Spider though, we're still firing at it. Paladin's out of the fight now, but we're able to charge into these Orc Arrow Boys with more Pegasus Knights. I believe we do at some point in time at any rate. But maybe these Knights of the Realm do it, but I think we end up charging into something else. Spider is still rampaging through my lines. This thing is a really good unit just because of how tough it is. It is so much better than the regular giant. It's just obscene, but there are certain situations, of course, where the regular giant is just fine and actually arguably better. But against Bretonnia, the Ragnarok Spider, since they don't have good artillery and they don't have good armor-piercing missiles, it's a good choice. It's a really, really solid one. We're charging in a whole bunch of stuff against the Orc War Boss there. It's going to deal some pretty good damage to him. We're still firing good arrow fire into the Ragnarok Spider. That's one of the few ways to actually deal enough damage to it that you can eventually wear it down. But getting these Pegasus Knights back in the air, they didn't deal too much damage to them because they only took out one unit of Orc Arrow Boys instead of both of them. But for some reason they're still waddling around the fight here and won't disengage properly, but we do get a quick charge in with these Knights of the Realm into those guys. At this point in time, our archers get caught and there's nothing I can really do about it. The Ragnarok Spider is just a little bit faster than my guys. Over here, unit of Orc Biggins fighting dregs of the Spearman unit, but we're able to start charging in, reinforcing with our general, and of course with a bunch of other Spearman units. And this is going to cause some pretty rapid damage to these Biggins. You can see their morale just tanking. The enemy general is doing a fantastic job of holding through here. We are going to pull through with our cavalry. We don't want to be stuck on that general too long here, but we could charge this Night Goblin Shaman instead. I think we instead circle around and charge into these Orc Biggins. Just try and finish them off, get them out of the fight here, because there's a lot of them still alive in this unit, 53 of them in fact, and that's going to be fine. You can see that this stupid spider is still pretty healthy. I hate these things so much. Yeah, our knights here are getting worn down quite a bit, so they're going to be out of the fight pretty soon. I need to do something decisive if I want to swing this fight over here. Unit of Orc Biggins, unit of Orc Biggins, those are both very good against cavalry, but here comes my general. While they're good against my general, this is going to be a big morale hit to them in addition. So the Lord over there does shatter all three of those units there, and that's going to be that. My opponent running out of units to a certain extent here. He's still chasing after these peasant bowmen. I've got some peasant bowmen over here, but they're way out of the fight there. Some units uncovered. But either way, we're trying to get our lines reset here to a certain extent. We're getting ready to attack with our spearmen and stuff like that. I just need to figure out what I actually have in the field, and then we're going to go after the Ragnarok Spider with everything. You can see that we've got all our units sort of lined up here. I send my cavalry off to chase this stuff. They're not any good against the Ragnarok Spider, but I do a quick charge against this general. Does pretty good damage. I think the poison negates a bit of my charge that I could have otherwise had, but we've got polearms, we've got spears here, sort of fighting against this Ragnarok Spider. We're shattering a bunch of units down here just because I know they're going to rally. I probably didn't need to, but these units are so useless against the Ragnarok that I might as well just fight with the units that I have here. and I do fully intend to just beat him with these units I have here, because I'm pretty sure I've got just enough. He does get in a good charge, though, against my general. I think this is where yep, this is where I've used the Potion of Toughness. It's going to help him disengage out of that again, and get back into the air. The Paladin is starting to run into the fight. These units, I don't know why they're not following, they're not on guard mode or anything like that, but we do a quick charge with our Pegasus Knights, and that's going to actually break the Ragnarok Spider somehow. Still no idea how that happened. Maybe it was... I really have no idea. Like, it should have broken before that, or... I don't know. Or it should have stayed, one of the two. Their general, though, fighting my general. His Ragnarok, I think, could rally, but the army balance bar is just moving so rapidly in my favor that he ends up losing the rest of that. So, yeah, this is the Bretonnia versus Orc matchup. It's a tricky matchup for Orcs in some respects, just because the units for the Bretonians are so solid against everything that the Orcs have. To one extent, though, you could use Black Orcs against Bretonnia, and they would do pretty well. It's just not great for this army composition rule set. So anyway, let's go to our final match. Alright, so here we are for our final match. We're playing as Chaos versus the Empire. So, the Empire has a really good, strong roster against Chaos, but I think part of it is just that Chaos cannot fight against any versatile faction. Orcs or the Empire are the two big ones that really dick over Chaos really, really hard. It's the ones that have inflexible army lists that force them into a certain archetype that Chaos can do well against. To a certain extent, Beastmen fall into that, Dwarves definitely fall into that, and Chaos can do quite well against them. But it's just so hard to figure out what Empire is going to do, that it's impossible to take exactly the right units that you're going to need to counter that composition. One of the other things is that the Steam Tank, very, very difficult to kill as Chaos. It's not many units that can do it. You sort of have to use Chaos Warriors with Halberds, but they don't stick on it very well. The Cavalry can kind of work-ish. Trolls can kind of not work really. But yeah, it's just sort of very, very difficult to counter that. So the problem is I got trapped into using Chaos in the final round, so my opponent could freely pick anything he wanted against them. So it would have been good if I could have used them earlier, but he didn't take any really weak factions when I could have used them. So we've got 3 units of Marauders here. We got 3 units of Chaos Warriors with Halberds. We've got 5 units of Forsaken, 2 units of Chaos Warhounds, and we've taken a unit of Chaos Knights. Got our typical Lord. This one time he's on the horse. We got the Chaos Horse with the Lore of Fire. The reason that we've got our Chaos Lord on the horse rather than in the air this time is because Empire can assert aerial dominance over Chaos. Got a unit of Outriders over there. There's 2 units of Chaos or Empire Knights back here. 2 units of the Great Swords, which I don't have a counter to in this army composition. He's got a unit of Handgunners over there and another one over there. He's got the General of the Empire, the Amber Wizard. He's got 4 units of Swordsmen with a few chevrons there. So, yeah, what's going to make this really hard for me is that the Steam Tank is going to be able to rack up a lot of damage and a lot of kills. I can't kill it. He's going to be able to deal a ton of damage with those Great Swords. I can't do anything about those either. I have terrible unit composition against those sorts of units. Now, fortunately for me, he only has 2 of those guys, but honestly, like, that's enough to make it really, really difficult for me to do anything. So he's firing away with his Outriders. I'm not actually too worried about that. It's not much different than getting picked at by artillery. You can see they're doing pretty comparable damage in some respects, but we are running after them with a unit of Chaos Warhounds just so that he doesn't get as much free damage as he wants off. My Chaos Warhounds are going to be shooed away, however, by his Flyers. His General and his Amber Wizard are able to sort of chase away these Chaos Warhounds, because if they kept chasing, then I'd obviously get completely screwed over there. Now, the Empire Knights are quite weak compared to the Chaos Knights. The Chaos Knights can probably defeat 2 units of these guys if it's a head-to-head fight, but if he hits me with 1 unit and then circles around with the other, then he'll be able to win in that one. In this case, though, he decides to get a bit caught up on a bunch of other stuff. Now, my Halberds are what he's focusing down with a lot of these shots here, but he's also firing at some Forsaken. I'm not really sure which is his priority, but it doesn't really matter. Both of the units are pretty good targets. In all honesty, just as long as he's not firing at Marauders, it's all well and good. So he's coming to my Marauders with his Cavalry here. Nice soft unit, theoretically, for him to hit, but you can see that their damage actually is pretty credible once he tries to pull away from them, especially once I got my Knights into the mix there. And you can see that he's taking quite a lot of damage to these Empire Knights as he tries to retreat. I charge in with a unit of Chaos Warhounds as well, just to nip at the heels of these retreating Knights. He's going to get his guns into position, but I'm not too concerned about that. I'm going to chase into them as I chase these Empire Knights here. He's still trying to get away, but our Forsaken are charging forward here. One of them gets charged by the Empire General. These guys get chased away by that Amber Wizard, but they did a bit of damage to the Outriders, which is all you really need to do, is a little bit of damage. We get caught and end up fighting this stupid steam tank with our Forsaken, which is not really good. I do think I end up losing the charge because of this, but just, you know, gotten away, and then we ended up losing to Great Swords and Swordsmen. That was a micro mistake on my part there, pretty bad one. We are putting down some buff spells to help a bit though. Over here though, Swordsmen getting charged by my Chaos Knights to a certain extent, getting a lot of reinforcements coming into this area here, and we're putting down some pretty solid buffs here. The steam tank though is going to make this really rough for me. The fact that I can't do a whole lot of jack-dick about some of this is pretty bad for me. If I had gotten this Forsaken unit moving a bit faster, I could have gotten them into these handgunners a little bit earlier, but he's able to sort of block them a little. Over here, I can actually fight out with the Knights of Chaos against Swordsmen over here. That's actually not that bad, but I need to get these halberds into this cluster here, but they're super slow and they're not following attack orders properly. So they're just standing there getting shot, which is not ideal, but nothing you can really do about that sometimes in this game if you're paying attention to other things. You know, you do the attack order, you assume they're gonna, but you really need to check to make sure that doesn't get changed, because if they get nicked by something or blocked or something like that, then that can very legitimately cancel that attack. So our Chaos Knights do manage to turn and charge against these Empire Knights at an appropriate time, so that's going to work out quite well for us. So the unit of Chaos Warriors Halberds finally gets into the steam tank and starts doing some damage, but unfortunately these Great Swords are also in that fight there, which is going to be bad for me. Great Swords just tear through Chaos Warriors with Halberds, because Chaos Warriors with Halberds are kind of shit. Even though we got 2 units in there, one of them breaks from Terror. My Mage is going to start running away a bit. These Chaos Warhounds are kind of screwed. I wasn't paying attention to the fact they rallied. This unit managed to charge my Marauders. This gives me a bit of a moment to get my Chaos Knights back into the fight, though. They finished chasing off some handgunners after taking out one of the cavalry units. I do believe I charged into the Empire Knights at this point in time. My general actually breaks really early in this fight for some reason. I'm not sure what he was fighting that was causing him so much damage, actually. Probably the Great Swords, but they don't do huge damage to mounted generals, usually, so a bit peculiar. Do get a good charge here against these Empire Knights. Actually, no, we hadn't seen off the Empire Knights. I think we do that now. Okay, so... but we do get a really solid charge against these ones. They're taking tons and tons of damage there. We're seeing some buffs coming down from my units, but they're not able to outclass the enemy units here. Chaos Warriors with Halberds sort of break from Terra there, but they're back in the fight right away, so that's that kind of wibbly-wobbly Terra there. They're not even able to kill this Amber Wizard. We are dealing some good damage to these Swordsmen, but it's not really going to matter a whole hell of a lot. We're able to sort of break this unit of Empire Knights surprisingly quickly. Well, not that surprising, but over here, units are rallying, they're coming back into this fight here. I need to get these Chaos Warriors with Halberds out of this area and doing something else. We got the Outriders with our Wolves. We need to get more of these units in there, and I could have actually won this at some points, I think, but just too much for me to pay attention to, just too many difficult moments here that were taking away from a lot of my attention. We lose against the Great Swords. Obviously, Marauders are most certainly not going to win that fight. But this unit of handgunners is like free reign. If I had that Chaos War... Well, actually, no, because there's nothing I can do to stop him from just taking that out. But we really want to get rid of those Outriders, so we are chasing them down because they're going to be harder to kill in the late game. If it goes to late game, then the handgunners, we get a decent-ish charge from them with the Chaos Knights, but he gets intercepted by the Steam Tank, and I need to pull them out of that, but I can't really because it'll just continue doing what it's doing. Our general comes in and for some reason I think retreats again like immediately. Oh yeah, right, yeah, I had to because the general, the Empire, is coming in to kill my general. But he'll get a good lick against those guys, I guess, but at this point in time, like, I think we're pretty much screwed because we lost this big clump here to a few units of swordsmen, and more importantly the Great Swords. They've got 113 kills there. The number of kills on the swordsmen is also pretty high, but that's not really too surprising. When you're running down fleeing units, it doesn't really matter how heavily armored they are. My general retreats there. Over here, Chaos Warriors with Halberds, they got sucked into a fight with swordsmen who were blocking for them. But yeah, at this point, I really don't have anything left. So what I was talking about earlier was that I think that the Empire is not actually stronger than Orcs. In this one, I think Orcs are stronger. I think he won this one partly because Chaos is weaker than Bretonnia. But the thing is that in this composition rule set, sort of like, yes, the Empire is very, very strong because they've got good core units. The Orcs, I think, have better core units that have a little bit more versatility to them, because ultimately the core units that the Empire has are all very good blockers, defenders, and for sort of tying up enemies. Orcs can do that, but they could also choose to do breakthrough, and they've also got better core buffs to their mainline infantry than the Empire does. The Empire does have better missile units, arguably, but Orcs aren't actually lacking in that. Their Goblin Archers incredibly good because of the larger numbers of them. Orc Arrow Boys are pretty decent. The only thing they don't have really is armor-piercing ammunition, but you don't really need that under very many circumstances, because most of the heavily armored units you'd want to ideally have something to answer them in melee, because they're going to probably be in melee very, very quickly. But that was a victory for my opponent there. Takes us to a 3-1, which is pretty good. And yeah, no, that's that was Chaos with the buffs from the new patch. I still think that Chaos is a bit too weak. I still think Dwarves are quite a bit too weak. I'm not sure where I rank them right now. I think that Chaos is still probably just a tiny bit ahead of Dwarves, but both of them are very, very weak. Their number adjustments, I don't think, really made up for the deficiencies that they have. But yeah, we'll have to see how that sort of continues. I don't know how much more you could adjust. You know, I'll put up a video why I think Chaos is ultimately a flawed faction right now. Dwarves, I think everyone fundamentally knows why they're a flawed faction. Like, realistically, they just don't have the tools they need to win fights because they don't have monsters, they don't have cavalry, they have to rely on missiles in a game that doesn't really reward that much. They pay a lot of points for that. So, yeah, we'll get to the reasons why I don't like those factions maybe later, but yeah, in any event, I hope you found this one enjoyable, and of course, as always, I hope to see you all next time.